Dracula Mihawk and Trafalgar Law debuted on OPTC Global on the 28th of January 2021. Global finally received the Halloween banner and events to coincide with the Halloween event in the later half of the previous year. This year's theme focused on Warlords of the Sea with surrounding events including Moria and Crocodile. The characters included in this batch are Buggy, Mischievous Jester of Terror, Happy Spooky Halloween, Hancock, Queen of the Midnight Party, Happy Spooky Halloween, and one of the Sugo-Fest exclusive characters provided utility within the captain that aimed to hit as many perfects as possible to maintain their damage, along with a special that would grant the ability to remove a ton of enemy damage reduction and provide an attack boost for multiple turns. Introducing Mihawk, Lord of the Never-Ending Night, Happy Spooky Halloween. And the second Sugo-Fest exclusive character of the batch was more focused on tanking damage from the enemy and repelling it back at the end of each turn, along with healing effects to maintain HP, along with a special that would allow you to tank any one hit as well as provide multiple turns of slot boosting effects. Introducing Trafalgar Law, Midnight Lord, Happy Spooky Halloween. In this series, we'll be traveling back in time to experience some of the older Sugo-Fest exclusive characters in their prime, aiming to show just what it was like to use these characters on their debut. I hope you enjoy the video, and without further ado, let's enter the Legends of OPTC. So thank you very much for checking out yet another episode of the Legends of OPTC, and in today's video we're going to be covering the next batch that debuted on Global right after Roger and Odin. So what happened is Roger and Odin debuted for the New Year's celebration heading from 2020 into 2021. Then during January we pretty much had nothing. They gave us like a whole bunch of like pretty generic stuff. They didn't really give us any new legends or anything until we got to the end of the month. And right before we clicked over into February, we had the new batch, which was the Halloween Sugo-Fest, which obviously came out for Halloween in Japan of 2020. Moving into 2021, we had the Halloween units. Now, this Halloween batch was actually pretty anticipated because these units are actually pretty decent. And the thing is we're heading very close now to the global anniversary period, and Global's anniversary wasn't really looking that exciting considering we just come off of the Roger and Odin celebration, you know, so not a lot of people really just thought Roger and Odin just better than the global anniversary units that we were expecting, which was Gemma 66, Sweet Commanders, and Luffy and Sanji. So people weren't really that excited for those units anymore. However, these units that debuted for the Halloween banner were actually pretty good units that still see some niche usage till today. These units are actually pretty good. So this whole celebration was a Halloween batch focusing on the 7 Warlords. There was this event with a Crocodile, there was a Gecko, Moria, and Perona, which I believe was the free-to-play Rumble unit of that season. And then we have the Rare Recruit batch. So let's start things off with Buggy. Buggy being int-driven shooter. This Buggy, I believe, has seen some play in Grand Voyage, actually, as you know, that one where you have to have you have to run a full driven team, you need a Buggy on your team, and it has to be int-driven with a Buggy, and you've got like a cost restriction or whatever. This Buggy has seen play in that content. So this Buggy, captain ability doesn't matter, but the special and crewmate ability are very good, removing 5 turns of special bind, reducing increased defense by 5 turns, and then change block, recovery, tandem, and bomb into matching, and 2-turn ore block. You do not see too many characters that provide a 2-turn ore block. So this character having that, also removing special bind on themselves with the crewmate ability is very good. And then as for the potential abilities, he did have Barrier Pierce, which was interesting, the Enrage, and he got Hunger Stacks, interesting, when he got the additional potential ability through Limit Break expansion. A little bit of a strange one that he didn't receive Fear Reduction, probably would have made a bit more sense, but honestly, Buggy doesn't do like a whole lot, but he's just got a good utility special that, again, does see some niche play even today. Still a pretty good rare recruit, all things considered. We move on to Boa Hancock, Queen of the Midnight Party. So Boa here is also a shooter character, int shooter cerebral. Her captain ability obviously doesn't really matter. She does make int beneficial to all characters, which is kind of like whatever. But then you got this special ability here that reduces bind duration by 5 turns, reduces threshold and resilience also by 5 turns, and then makes strength, dex, and quick slots beneficial to all characters for 3 turns. So not like a crazy special, but again, just some niche utility here. Bind removal is always nice to have. Threshold and resilience, also pretty nice to have sometimes. And then making these slots beneficial for 3 turns. Mainly you're not going to use Boa for this ability, but there are some circumstances that can come up where the enemy gives you badly matching slots, and you can use this to avoid that preemptively. So it's pretty cool, I guess. And then for potential abilities here, pinch healing, barrier pierce, and ship bind duration. All of these characters not really having useful supports does not really help out. So, you know, these 2 rare recruits just provided some decent utility, and it does make a bit of sense that they have this because both Mihawk and Trafalgar Law have really offensively focused abilities. Like, they are your crew's dedicated attack and orb boosters. So it's cool that they had the, you know, the rare recruits actually provide you with some utility, which is honestly pretty interesting. So let's go ahead and get into what these characters actually do. Let's start with Trafalgar Law. So Law, really cool artwork on this guy. Int Slasher Cerebral. Captain ability would boost the attack of Int by 4.25 times at the start of the chain, 1.4 times HP, removes 10 turns of Despair, which is also really cool. Like, seeing utility in these captain effects was a really useful component here, so resisting Despair is massive. He also deals 100 times the damage that you have taken from enemies in the previous turn in int damage to all enemies at the end of the turn. So what it means is if you take 1000 damage, you multiply it by 100 and deal that damage at the end of the turn. Pretty interesting ability, but you do have to be careful because this can make stalling in content very difficult, because if you have to stall on some turtles, they do a bit of damage to you, you just reflect a bunch of damage back to the enemy, and you'll kill them before you get your cooldowns ready to go. So you do have to be careful when you're using Law. More often than not, you would see Law used as a crewmate in a lot of situations, but there are still some really cool you know, situations you can find yourself in where Law's captain ability is good. He also does boost the attack of int characters by an additive 0.15 times for each perfect that you hit, so it's an interesting effect there. But you also have the super special, because super types are now a big thing in the game, where you need to have one of the following units, including Luffy, any of the warlords, while obviously Law was a warlord, which includes Weevil as well. At this point in time, we did not have many Edward Weevils, but still a pretty decent array of units here. And the effect would just recover 50% of your max HP, and you get super int. This makes perfect sense because he is a character that wants to take damage, and then when you're taking damage, you can use this effect to heal you back up. And then you got the special ability, which is also pretty good, boosting orb effects of int characters by 2.25 for 1 turn, and also protect from defeat for 1 turn. A lot of characters that have the ability to protect from defeat require you to be above a certain HP threshold for the effect to actually work. This character didn't care about that. You could be at 1 HP, you could be at full HP. Whenever you launch the special, you are guaranteed to like survive any one hit. So if the enemy has a major death hit where they do like 100,000 damage to you, this can protect you from defeat. There's some really cool things you can do with this, obviously. So being able to have this guy as a sub on your team, you get an orb boost out of it, you will survive a death hit, and then it says after 1 turn has passed, you get a 2.5 times orb boost in the next turn. So you being able to use this on a stage 4, moving into stage 5, multiple turns of orb boost is never a bad thing. The other effect of Law that was very cool is his support effect, and a lot of people in the community that have had this guy for a long time would have definitely used this support more than once. It's a very good support attaching to any int character, and if that character performs a damage dealing special, you get a 1.75 times orb boost to your int characters. Very valuable ability. We saw this with Legend Smoker that came out, you know, a few batches before this one, who would provide you with a quick attack boost as a support. This guy doing an int orb boost. Very valuable to have that. So Trafalgar Law, definitely a nice character to own when he came out. Has aged pretty well. Obviously the numbers are a little low. He doesn't have a super evolution yet, which can definitely make him a lot better. It would be actually really cool to see a super evolution on this guy. Now we move on to the next one, which is Dracula Mihawk, which is the counterpart legend to Trafalgar Law. This guy here, int Slasher Cerebral, and his captain ability is kind of interesting in a way. You get the -1 turn of cooldown, you boost the attack of int characters by 5 times until you hit other than a perfect, so it's consistently a 5 times attack boost, but as soon as you miss a perfect, it goes down to a 4 times attack boost instead, and then boost HP by 1.3, and 10 turn paralysis removal. So you've got Law with Despair removal, and you've got Mihawk with paralysis removal. We move on to his super special, which again, you need one of the following units, which is Roran or Azora, which is cool, any of the Warlords, and then you got Buggy, and you got Edward Weevil, of course, the same kind of characters that were acquired previously. Changes all orbs into matching, so it changes orbs, but it doesn't go through block slots. He also adds 1000 times his attack as additional typeless damage to his own attacks for 1 turn. So just a little bit of tap timing bonus damage, and then int becomes super int. Basically, you're just using this to get matching slots. This effect obviously doesn't matter if the enemy has normal attacks only, it just negates this effect altogether. But just being able to generate a full board of matching slots is pretty valuable, right? And then you got the special, which would do a damage dealing special. So if you had both of these units, you could actually, use the Mihawk special, and the law support would trigger off of this to give you an orb boost, which is really cool. So you get the health cut. You also remove Rainbow Shield on the enemy by 10 turns. Really cool that he has that. And then boost attack of int by 2.25. And then if you hit 3 perfects, it becomes a 2.5 times boost in the following turn. So you've got Law, multiple turn orb booster. You've got Mihawk, multiple turn attack booster. And they work perfectly together. He also adds 5 times his attack as additional bonus damage with his crewmate ability, which is pretty interesting. And again, a very good support attaching to Zora only. It has to be a damage dealing special, but it does remove 3 turns of % damage reduction. This is a support that is very good on paper, but there haven't been too many circumstances where I have used it. I think I've maybe used it since I pulled the unit, maybe 3 times, maybe 4 times I've probably used it. I haven't really used it all that much. It is a good support on paper, just one that doesn't come up as often as you would think. So this is going to be an interesting batch to go ahead and showcase. We're going to showcase both Sugo-Fest exclusive characters together because they just work so well together. I just feel like it would be a good opportunity to show them off, and hopefully we can find some really cool content to show them off against. We might just go ahead and go against page 1 because that was the Coliseum that came out at the time. We'll see what happens. We'll do some research and see if we can figure out what kind of content we're going to showcase these wonderful batch of characters against. Alright, so we're in game right now with the Halloween batch, and we have included the Crocodile in this batch because this Crocodile was he was like a free-to-play event that would come out during this same time period here, and he works really well with this batch. So that's exactly what we're going to showcase here, along with the Trafalgar Law Captains, because having that ability to do that end of turn damage is actually going to play a big part in how we're going to tackle this Coliseum. Of course, as for the other rare recruits, we've got the Hancock, we've got the Buggy, we've got the Mihawk, of course, the other Sugo-Fest exclusive. Now, despite the fact that we do have the Laws and the Mihawk at level 150, their abilities are still the same, so nothing really too crazy here. All the characters have the exact same abilities as to when this batch first dropped way back when, in 2021, so nothing really too crazy here aside from the fact that they're going to have slightly higher statistics, okay? Of course, I actually have a new mobile device. I have a new phone that I transferred my account to, so I'm getting a bunch of these pop-ups and tutorials about how to use the characters, of course. Either way, one thing is important is, a little bit of interesting things. Back when this first came out, all the characters on this batch got like a bunch of cooldown for being boosted units. That is not the case, it looks like, except for like the Crocodile, who might have the potential ability for cooldown reduction. We just have to be really careful because we obviously want to get cooldowns, but we also need to make sure that we are not like breezing through this too quickly. We need to make sure that we don't actually take too much damage because with the way that Law's Captain ability works, however much damage we receive from the enemy, they're going to multiply that by 100, do it back as damage, and because we have 2 Law Captains, that damage actually occurs twice. So you see, we took a bit of damage, we do 500,000 damage to that turtle, which is a little crazy. So we just need to make sure that we kill the characters that are on the 1-turn cooldown. We can take a little bit of time stalling on the other characters here. Although, I don't think it's that important. We don't really need to do too much stall, it looks like, from this point onwards. So, we don't have many matching slots. Let's just go ahead and kill this guy. Actually, let's try and get rid of some of these slots here, because these slots are really bad. So here we have stage 3, which is against Drake. So Drake, he has 6 million HP. He will go ahead and despair us for 6 turns, but of course that's not going to be a problem because we have Trafalgar Law as our captain. He does have immunity buff as well, which is kind of whatever. But what we can do is try and do as much damage as possible. We do have these super types to heal us back up if we are kind of threatened, but I think we're looking kind of okay right now. So we're just going to try and do as much damage as we can. And then maybe the end of turn damage here is going to actually kill Drake. Let's see. Yeah, that's actually going to kill. That's crazy. Okay, moving on. We have all of our cooldowns, and here we have Sober Mask. So you see that there are a bunch of enemies on this stage, and that's to kind of assist with the fact that with Mihawk special, you do need to actually get quite a lot of perfects. You need to hit your 3 perfects in order to get the buff in the following turn. So in this situation here, we're going to go ahead and use our Buggy special, which is going to change all of those block slots into matching. It will lock those slots for 2 turns, and it also gets rid of the enemy's increased defense. So it works perfectly. Buggy was essentially designed for this specific fight. Then let's go ahead and target Sober Mask. We want to try. Oh, there we go. Is that targeting Sober Mask? I can't target him. Where is he? Oh my god. Okay. Well, that will work anyway. I think. This is weird. I'm literally tapping on Sober Mask and he's not being targeted. Is it because that he can turn invisible? I don't know. Either way, this will still. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so we can just kill this mob and that's going to be fine. Let's go ahead and use our Mihawk special. So unfortunately, this 15% health cut from Mihawk won't hit Sober Mask, but it's not going to be a problem. We're going to have more than enough damage anyway. So of course, with the way that this works, it's going to give us an attack boost turn 1. If we hit a certain amount of perfects, we're going to get an attack boost in the following stage. And then we also have the ability to remove 10 turns of Rainbow Shield, but there's no Rainbow Shield on this stage anyway, so it's not that big of a deal. We can then go ahead and use our Law special. So Law, of course, gives us an orb boost on activation, and then after 1 turn has passed, we can get a secondary orb boost. Remember, Law has a special that also protects you from defeat for 1 turn. It's going to be really, really important when we reach the final stage, and the fact that we have a secondary Law special. We can also go ahead and use the super type here of Law, because we have 2 super types. We can use one now, which will allow our end characters to do even more damage and also put us back to full HP. And the rest of the specials we do need to save for the final stage. So all we need to do now is we just need to kill Sober Mask. That is important. It doesn't matter that we don't kill the surrounding mobs, because you're going to see exactly what happens here. So let's go ahead and do this. Okay. So now you see that Sober Mask actually does a death hit and he revives, but with the way that Law works, is because it's still the end of the turn, this effect is going to trigger and immediately just kill them all, which is so cool that it actually works that way. So you don't actually have to do a secondary turn, because remember, you want to try and hit those perfects so that on the next stage, when we get to stage 5, these effects will now activate. But because Law's end of turn hit works before that next turn actually triggers, it actually works really, really well for us. So we've reached the final stage now, and here we have page 1. So page 1's preemptive attack. You'll see that he does give us attack down, he does give us despair, which of course doesn't matter. When you kill him, he does do 75,000 damage as a death hit, which is why it's very important that we do have that secondary Law special ability. And then you do see that the attack boost, the 2.5 attack boost, is here from Mihawk. We have our 2.5 times orb boost. And let's start activating some additional specials. You see the enemy has resilience and damage threshold. This is why we have the Boa Hancock, which removes those 2 abilities. Boa does have that other effect, which can remove bind by 5 turns, and she does make strength decks and quick slots beneficial to our characters for the next 3 turns. That effect obviously doesn't really matter. We then have our Crocodile special. He's a free-to-play unit which works really well to remove attack down, and also gives our int characters a color affinity boost, which just gives us even more damage that can stack really well with Law and the Mihawk special ability, being a 2 times color affinity boost. Now, even though we have enough damage to kill here, we do still need to activate the secondary Law special. As I mentioned, when page 1, when he dies, he does 75,000 damage to us. We do need to make sure that we are tanking that hit, because if we don't, we're going to lose. So Law special here protects us from defeat for 1 turn, despite however much HP we have. And then we can activate the other super type just to give us back to that full HP threshold. Alright, he's going to heal us 50% of our max HP. And now we have more than enough damage to get the knockout, so let's go ahead and do this. Page 1 does have 38 million HP, so this should be more than enough damage. So let's go ahead and get this done. There we go. 40 million damage with 3 taps there. And then he, of course, is going to do that 75,000 damage, which we are going to tank comfortably thanks to that Law special ability. So very, very cool that we're able to get that done. Alright, so there we go. That's pretty much going to wrap up this video here up against, you know, page 1, utilizing the Halloween batch. But the Halloween batch will continue in next week's episode, as next week's episode is going to cover another character that came out right after this batch. Ultimately could have potentially even included in this video, but that is going to be Halloween Shanks. Halloween Shanks, a very controversial character. Not a lot of people were really fans of that unit, but we'll talk about it once we get to it. Anyways, hopefully you guys enjoyed the video today. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, make sure to go ahead and leave a like, and if you want to stay up to date with all the content I post, including more One Piece Treasure Cruise content, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below. On that, guys, I'll see you guys within the next video.